Greenway Conservancy folks forward. Robin, as you know, is our NEWRA board member on the Greenway Conservancy. And I'll turn it over to Robin so that she can introduce Jesse, and Jesse can take it from here.
Hi everyone. One of my responsibilities as the representative from NEWRA on the Greenway board is to update this group on the things that are going on the Greenway parcels in the North End, and to give you any other information that we think you might need to know about the Greenway. And it's my pleasure tonight to introduce Jesse Brackenberry, the Executive Director, so that he can update you on everything with far more detail than I can normally do for you. And there's been some great new personnel changes and some more exciting things going on in the Greenway to tell you about. So, Jesse Brackenberry, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks. And thanks to all of you. As Robin said, I'm the Executive Director of the Rose County Greenway. I've been at the Conservancy for about 5 years. I have been leading the Conservancy for the past about 2 years. Wanted to tell you a little bit about a couple of the personnel changes, and one of those is Michael Nichols, who joined the Conservancy about a month ago. 2 months now. And Michael is our Community Affairs and Strategic Projects Manager. And so I have 3 little kids and am often, by this point they are in bed. I just got that text from my wife, but I'm often helping get them in bed instead of here. Michael doesn't have 3 little kids yet, so he's able to be here more often. And I'll let him introduce himself in a sec. A couple of other personnel changes. We have hired 2 park rangers. You may have seen them in the park. They wear Smokey the Bear hats, pretty recognizable. It is a sort of a pilot effort. They help with both kind of ambassador function, right? People have questions, people coming out of Faneuil Hall don't know how to get to the North End, and they're there to help. They also play kind of help with security and enforcement. I mean, they don't carry guns, they can't write tickets, but there are social problems on the Greenway, as with any other urban park, and we're happy to have their help. Only 2 is not enough for a 1.5 mile long park and for all the hours in all the days, but it's a good start. We got grant funding, both some corporate support and some foundation support, and glad to try this out. If you haven't seen them, when you do, say hi. Trina and Omar are our 2. Also, we have hired a public art curator and program manager, Chris Cowan. He is formerly of Millennium Park in Chicago. If you haven't been to Millennium, it's fantastic and known particularly for the Bean and other public art that's there. So we're delighted that we can bring somebody of his caliber to Boston and to join the Greenway Conservancy. And then lastly, a departure. Some of you may know Linda Jonash, who has been the Director of Planning and Design at the Conservancy. She is departing after 10 years at the Conservancy, the longest tenured person ever to have worked for the Greenway Conservancy. She is, she moved her 90-year-old mother into town, and she has her first grandchild. So it's one of those unique situations of 4 generations, and she, after 42 years of work, is ready to step back and enjoy a little bit of that and consider her next step. So we're saying goodbye to her for those of you that know her. With that, why don't I let we have a new lease with Mascot, and want to give you an update on what that lease means. It does not propose a roof deck or an expansion of occupancy, but it does propose an expansion of the Greenway for the Conservancy's responsibility. And Michael will tell you a bit more about the terms of the lease, and then happy to take questions about the lease and other matters as well.
Thank you, Jesse. So I'll introduce myself really quickly. My name is Michael Nichols. Like I said, I've been at the Greenway, or Jesse said, I've been at the Greenway about 2 months now. I'll be in a community affairs and special projects role, which means you can certainly expect to see more of me than probably anyone else other than Robin from the Greenway side at your meetings as needed. I'm also available to answer any questions at virtually any time on any community needs you may have, observations about the Greenway, thoughts you may have about making the experience better. You're certainly going to see with our announcement today, certainly even more of a Greenway presence in months and years to come. My background is city and state government. I come most recently from the Boston City Council. Although I have to say, and I didn't prep Ford or Robin for this, but the North End is a particularly special place to me. It's where my mother lived when my parents met back in the 70s. My mother was living on North Street, working at the Kennedy building, having her morning cup of coffee at the steaming kettle, and going to Jordan Marsh on her lunch hour. And that's sort of the vision of Boston that I was raised with. And so when I moved to Boston about 7 years ago, the North End has always sort of been a particularly special place to me. And I can honestly tell you it's one of the reasons why I took a job at the Greenway, moving out of government for the first time, really my professional career, into something where it brings me back to a neighborhood that means a lot to me. And so I'm excited about working with you all, and especially now that we have our new lease, which I'll talk about, it really is going to bring me personally into the neighborhood a lot more often, so I'm excited about that. So as Jesse mentioned, we have a new lease between us and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. We call it MassDOT. Most of you probably know that the Greenway exists on top of the highway tunnel. So we have, for the entire life of the Greenway, existed on leases from MassDOT. We had a longer lease expire in November of 2013. We've been on a number of short-term extensions since that time. But in recent weeks, through the help of our board and negotiations with Jesse, we've been able to strike a lease with MassDOT for a 2-year extension, which carries us, the theory on the 2 years is it carries us into the next governor's administration, so that we'll have an opportunity to establish that relationship as we've had one over the entire life of the Greenway, really, with the Deval-Patrick administration. As a part of that, it level funds the Greenway, so we're going to continue to have the same level of support from the state that we've had in years past. And in addition to a number of other sort of specifics that I could talk about, I think the one that we're mostly here to talk about tonight is that for whatever reason, as the Greenway has evolved over time, there were a number of properties that are along the Greenway, near the Greenway, at the northern end of the Greenway, that weren't a part of what we were allowed to program, to maintain, or to provide horticultural, impact on. That's changed with this lease, where MassDOT has asked us to take on 13 new areas on or along the Greenway, 6 of which are in the North End. The other 7 are in the Leather District and Chinatown neighborhood. For the most part, they're sort of small scraps of land. If we're able to show the map, we'll try and do so, but they're, for the most part, small scraps of land along the tunnel administration building, including the lawn in front of the tunnel administration building. But there's also one significant parcel, which is parcel 2. Parcel 2 is one of the properties that, for many of you that live in the North End, as you view the Zaka Bridge from this neighborhood, it's a small triangular lot near Valenti Way, bordered by North Washington Street and Valenti Way. It's a very small triangle, and Jesse will speak to sort of some of our plans for that area. But so as a part of the lease extension with MassDOT, we've been asked to take on these new 13 parcels, 6 of which are in the North End. So you'll see horticultural plans that we'll be bringing to the neighborhood. It will be a somewhat slow process, since MassDOT has given us at least a little bit of funding for this, but probably not as much as we would all hope to have to be able to really bring the Greenway touch to these parcels, so that even more of what you see in the North End will look like the rest of the Greenway parcels do. And so I'll just kind of fill in a couple more of those specifics, but we're really excited to have even a greater role in shaping how beautiful the North End looks.
So to touch a little bit more on those additional the tunnel administration building, you may know it as 128 North Street, or the building that the North Bennett Street School has moved into the back of, and MassDOT's been talking about what to do with the front of, and RFPing. The lawn and little beds around that have been MassDOT's to care for, and now will be the Conservancy's to care for. I think for 5 years, the places that the Greenway Conservancy has been caring for have been getting better over time, and the places that MassDOT has been caring for, that isn't their priority. Their priority is roads and tunnels and bridges, and it hasn't been a focus. And so they have gone, somewhat downhill. And it will take, they are therefore in worse condition than where the rest of the Greenway started 5 years ago, and we'll start trying to kind of bring some of them back. I think the areas around 128 North Street are mostly not, what people think of as public park, but they're green space. No reason why they shouldn't look nice, and the lawn shouldn't be cut regularly, and so on. Our rangers will visit these areas that they weren't before. We have a contract with Work Inc. It's another nonprofit that does, Working is a nonprofit that provides employment opportunities to individuals with disabilities. They provide the basic, what we call kind of mow-blow snow. So in terms of litter pickup, those places will get visited regularly. In taking on the additional, it's 1.3 acres, it's about 10% more land. In taking that on, we're actually taking on twice as much irrigation as we maintain now. So currently we have, for example, there are 6 controllers for the irrigation along the Greenway. There will now be 7 more. And those irrigation systems actually are in need of some help. So the first thing we will be doing is just a whole bunch of fixes on the irrigation controllers, and then turning them on and seeing where water comes out that it shouldn't come out. And before we can do much in the way of replanting any areas or anything like that, that's step one. The other sort of first task, priority task, is tree work. So in these 1.3 acres of property, there are 55 trees, plus or minus, and they all need pruning. Some of them need sort of real structural pruning. There are 10 to 15 that I believe the current estimate is 13 that need to be entirely removed. They're sort of standing waiting to fall on somebody. So it's a good thing that we are looking at them and planning to take them out. It's our intent to replace all of those, though the first priority is to get the dead trees out, and then let's make sure the irrigation's fixed before we put new trees in. So all this will take some time. I think it's possible, I think it's likely, in fact, that we will miss like the spring planting season to do very much on any of these things. But it will come. We will maintain them organically as we maintain the rest of the Greenway. We will bring more attention to them than they've gotten. So I think it's a good deal for the public. I think that it brings additional attention or additional funding to park spaces. None of these additional things are particularly glamorous areas, but why shouldn't they look good?
It may not sound like it. We get caught in the details very easily, but this is a really exciting development, I think, both for the Greenway and for the abutters, the abutting property owners and the communities that live along the Greenway to have sort of us getting an opportunity to really be involved in more and more areas.
There are other areas that were contemplated to be that are MassDOT owned or MassDOT cared for that were contemplated to be transferred to the Conservancy that weren't. I cannot really offer you much of an explanation as to what MassDOT put in versus what they left out and why. Any more than I could offer you an explanation as to why 6 years ago when we first had a lease, some things were in and some things weren't. I think it's quite possible that 2 years from now, or 7 years from now, or 12 years from now, that there will be another round of items that MassDOT says, I don't know why we didn't add those last time, but let's add them again this time. Let's add them this time. So, happy to take questions about any of those pieces, but I don't have a lot of info.
Everyone, I want to say thank you very much for the presentation. I want to make the Q&A session both informal and concurrent with refreshments, because as you know, we're going to get physically thrown out of here at 9 o'clock. So we are going to set the spread up here while questions come into these fine gentlemen. So you can start the questions, but don't be distracted by your executive committee doing busing work.
Did we have the results?
Oh, I'm sorry, and I should have done that immediately. I was even reminded by David. We do have a count on 1618 Battery Street, 3 in support, 26 in opposition. So I think Dan should have 2 pieces of pastry.
Jesse, congratulations on your new appointment, but I was at the BRA Advisory Board meeting last week.
Sorry, I can't hear you very well.
I was at the BRA Advisory Board last week, and I asked the representative from the Greenway Conservancy on parcel 10, there's some structures being built on that. Do you know what those are?
Yes. On parcel 10, the southernmost of the 2 Greenway North End parks, the question was, there are some structures being built there, what are those? That was a partnership with the North Bennett Street School. Some of their students and craft people did a carpentry project as a demonstration project. The structures that were put out there were, I'm not going to get the terminology right, but it is the original version of carpentry construction where they were held together not with nails and glue, but post and beam. Thank you. There we go. And so they were very temporary as demonstration. Nice partnership with a community organization. That's a great one. Happy to sort of show off their work, and particularly kind of high-end craftsmanship like that.
They are temporary.
They are temporary.
You're not putting any any stores or anything else.
Sorry?
You're not putting any
They
canteens
aren't
or-
staying. I promise. They're not a roof deck.
With Linda Donat's document, are you in a position to disavow the letter of December 8th on Greenway Stationery, which says, with reference to the Choparo Towers, we believe the current proposal warrants being advanced to the next phase of design development and environmental review?
I know I'm not prepared to disavow that letter. I will say what you have there is a single sentence in about 2 pages, right? It is what precedes that sentence, right, is something that says discussions are going to continue about height and mass, and the intent of that sentence really is discussions should continue about it, right? Discussions absolutely should continue about it, and the typical way that those discussions often continue is in the next phase of the development.
Okay, so at least can you say that the Conservancy is not, at this point in time, supporting the Choparo proposal as it stands?
Absolutely. That letter was never intended, despite what you may have read in the Globe article that covered it, which the first sentence of the Globe article was Greenway Conservancy backs towering redevelopment of Chiafaro proposal. We were horrified to read that sentence in the Globe. Linda particularly was horrified. They never called us for comment for that article. You know, we had a discussion, particularly with the Wharf District Council about this, and the discussion there and the conclusion there, not just our conclusion, but the conclusion in the room there was that this was a letter issued to the Municipal Harbor Planning Committee that Linda would clarify that position within the Municipal Harbor Planning Committee, and that clarifying it in the press was liable to extend the news cycle and extend the controversy, and that pragmatically it was unlikely to
Oh, no, I would just think a whole new fresh thing now with some sort of release about something. Nothing, just, that's in the past, we don't want to redo that. But I know there's misconception, or from what you said today, in that area that you are a supporter of Chicago. And I don't know if you want that to be what
We've appeared before the Wharf District Council, I think, 3 times since the letter came out.
Oh, yeah, I'm not even,
Yeah, so-
because I don't go to work, but just
Right.
the general feel that down there, individuals, you know, they might not be at the council. Because I see the Greenway as supporting Prudential and Chicago.
I think that, I mean, as in this room, as anywhere, people have very different opinions. on different things, and I mean, in talking with the Wharf District Council, kind of the equivalent of this forum, and in talking directly with Harbor Towers Garage Committee, I think that there is a good understanding among those that show up to a meeting like this and are available to hear us talk about it, and those who are also, you know,
I'm just referring to
actively
public
involved.
perception, not committees or just like, you know, people go, how many people go to MHP things? You know, maybe 30 people go, but that doesn't mean, who knows what seeps through the neighborhoods and stuff, you know? That's all I'm talking about.
It
You're
is
public
hard,
perception.
you know,
Yeah.
with the Globe's coverage of this, it is hard to undo a perception that has been created, without a doubt. And our efforts in a room like this, or at the Wharf District Council, or in a room at Harbor Towers with their garage committee, helps inform people, but it's not the same as the Globe writing a letter. I mean, writing an article.
Just let me know what's going on.
Yeah.
Did you require what, where they got their information?
Right out of the letter.
Source?
It's in the letter. It was in the letter. If you say we encourage discussions of mass height, you're assuming that anything's going to be built, right?
I
Yeah,
mean,
you shouldn't make that assumption for what's still in a review process.
Exactly.
I mean, this is,
so I think actually in encouraging discussions of the mass and height, that is in fact what is both going on in the municipal harbors planning process and will go on in, and pardon me, I'm not able to quote scripture and verse on this, but in the Article 80 process as well. And that is the debate that in Harbor Towers, in proposing alternatives that George Thrush has put forward, and the BRA and asking Teal to put forward alternatives. That is the conversation that's going on. And the vast majority of the letter that we wrote, I mean, there was 2 sentences on this, and then the vast majority of what was in that letter talked about the importance of the public realm and connectivity, pedestrian circulation, and that was the focus of the letter in terms of what was bolded with it, in terms of the number of words that were devoted to different topics, in terms of, if you read the letter in its totality, it's, we made sure that the Globe posted a copy of the letter after they put up their article, because if you read the full letter, that is not the majority of what is there. That was not the intent of what is there. The intent is conversations will, as they have, continue on this topic. And so we want to weigh in on these other activities.
Can you guys speak to, you mentioned parcel 2 is going to be part of the Greenway. What, if you're standing on parcel 6 and looking towards the Station Bridge, towards Portal Park, what will not be built on, what will be a park, and what will be built on in addition to the already being built?
So parcel 2 was given to us as what's being called an option parcel, which means our rights are fairly limited to it. So we're allowed to maintain it, improve the horticulture, and in some instances program those properties. But MassDOT reserves the right with 30 days notice to take it back and develop it. We've gotten some positive, in some fashion, going through the typical process for development. We've gotten some positive indications from MassDOT, however, that particular parcel, they're not interested in developing beyond potentially becoming an open space park someday. That's not in stone anywhere, but that's the indication we're getting from them at this point in the process, is that would probably remain some kind of open area.
Will there remain like a park connection, or will the view quarter be like on the street?
I don't know that, I mean, our focus as an organization, until this new lease, has been the parks within our lease. And we are not, I'm not trying to, I don't really know what in the Bullfinch Triangle, the parcels 1A, 1B, I don't know the future of those parcels. The MassDOT map that I'm familiar with has a number of those colored red as development parcels. But that MassDOT map that I'm familiar with also dates, I believe, to about 2006, right? So the I would guess that there are people like Victor who have followed this extremely closely who might have a better sense of what's going on with each of those parcels than we do. Even me, but it's my best guess. Even parcel 2, as Michael says, that is on that map colored red, the fact that they've asked us to maintain it, I don't think particularly because they've called it an option parcel, guarantees that it's going to be green space at all. We, of course, would like them all to be green space, but
Did you talk about 1B?
Not really. So 1B is the parcel just north of parcel 2. So that wasn't given to us as a part of this lease. It wasn't proposed to be given to us at any point in this process. But yet, it is colored on the map that parcel 2 is colored red on. It's also colored red as a development parcel. So it's sort of MassDOT's decision, if you will. But in the same way that we were happy and willing to accept parcel 2, we would accept, I think, that one as open space and continue to.
1B is the last stand for the view corridor from the Greenway to the Zeka Bridge, from the north end to the Zeka Bridge. You build on parcel 1B and that's it. You don't see the Zeka Bridge from the north end. It would be great if, as a community, we could make a stand along with you guys to try to make sure that 1B is open as Phil has suggested.
so you can imagine that we have a complex relationship with MassDOT, who's our landlord and
Right.
our 40% funder.
Right, and all changed in a month.
And
Yeah.
yes, and it will. I think that there were extensive community conversations that led to the designation of certain things as open space and other things as development long ago. They may well merit being revisited. In general, I grew up taking gym class in Central Park. I worked in the New York City Parks Department for 5 years. I'm now choosing to work for a park organization. I'm not choosing to work for a developer. And so you kind of know where my heart lies. The decisions about what's going to be done with these parcels, though, I'd be surprised if anybody asked me. One other thing that's worth saying, by the way, about taking on these additional parcels. We talked about MassDOT providing level funding. They also provided, because they asked us to take on about 10% more land, they increased funding for caring for those. And they gave us a slug of money to fix what's broken. And I say that because I think that it's the right framework. Not just the right framework for good, the Conservancy gets more money, but that if they had simply asked us to care for more things and not given us more money, we would have had to spread the dollars that there are thinner across these things. And it is in the public's interest that if we're going to care for more things, it comes with more money to care for them. And so this is to say, if you think that it's great that these things came our way and you have a great idea of something else to come our way, that is not a problem at all. But what should accompany that idea is, and MassDOT, you should fund the care of that. Because not funding it is honestly what they have been doing. They have been spending no money and not taking care of it. If you want no money spent on it, they can do that job for you.
And it's also worth mentioning at this point, I think, as well, that your elected officials, Senator Petroselli and Rep. Michaelowicz, have both been there with us in terms of they understand the lease. We've been briefing them throughout, so they are familiar with sort of this issue. And if you had any sort of related issues that you wanted to bring to them, they would be familiar with the issue.
Does this new arrangement include the tree pits on the north end side of Cross Street where the irrigation we know does not work?
It does not. However, there may be a positive thing on that, which is the irrigation systems everywhere are, and this is a conversation we've had about this before. A number of the irrigation systems that were not within our control affected things off the Greenway. And so this concern about the irrigation's not working was something that we said, yeah, we understand. We have that downstream problem sometimes about irrigation. As a result of this, we are having conversations with the Boston Parks Department about assuming control for many of the irrigation boxes that are not currently under our control. That's the doubling of the irrigation system. Thus, it may well be, as those conversations continue, and as we continue to investigate how all of these irrigation systems are connected to things that weren't firmly under our control, that we will be able to flip the switch on ourselves even for things that are not within our control. We will, yes.
Hi, I'm Tricia Stevens from the North End Beautification Committee, and this evening, we have taken possession of those tree beds on Cross Street, and the water doesn't work, and we would love for them to work, so therefore we don't do any plantings because we don't have the water, so we filled it in with mulch, and we would love it if you could make them operable so that we could do some plantings.
I don't know, but I hope so too. When, right now, there are 6 irrigation controllers we've got and 7 we don't. Some or all of those 7 I think will come our way. When we do, we're going to investigate where do all the pipes go and where are their valves and what's working and what isn't. Our focus is going to be on the valves that are running the things that we're responsible for caring for, but at least we will have a better sense and better possibility of being able to help them than we have today.
Can I just say, Patricia's group, the North End Beautification Committee, really does want to work with the Greenway, and I know the Greenway has reached out to you guys as well on some events that are possible.
We're recipients of the planters, the big planters on Cross Street, so we take care of those. They're evergreens and greens, and today we noticed that one of our little evergreens has disappeared. I hope everyone's enjoying the Christmas tree.
It happens to us too.
And Patricia and her group were supposed to have the last slot of presentation tonight to talk a little bit about the beautification committee. I feel like Jimmy Kimmel apologizing to Matt Damon for being cut. But we're going to have you next month so that we can talk more about it.